The things that I enjoy the most about the premise of Jujutsu Kaisen are ironically the aspects of the series that get explored the least within the show itself. I think the fact that something as arcane and esoteric as sorcery has evolved into what's essentially a day job creates a really interesting dichotomy for the Jujutsu world. I find characters like Nanami and Mei who just casually clock in and clock out into slaying literal demons to be fascinating characters because it's like, bro, what? Dog, go work in IT or something. It's never that serious that you need to clock into a Kenjaku squabble. This particular story element of Jujutsu Kaisen, this polarity between how standardized the job of Jujutsu sorcerer has become and how non-standard Jujutsu sorcery is at its core, I don't know, bruh. It's cool shit. It's cool, underexplored, underdeveloped, quite frankly wasted shit if I'm looking at it from the purview of where JJK decided to take its narrative in the long run. Like many of my fellow JJK corporate sorcery fans, when I saw the story drifting away from this particular aspect of its world building, I kinda just took it in stride, right? I mean, it's not uncommon for shonen stories to ultimately power sealing their way out of their initial appeal, but as this year's spooky month started to come into season and I began to scour the internet for some new anime that could get me into the spooky mood, I found myself coming across a rather obscure gem from like 1994 that randomly scratched this very niche corporate sorcery itch that I had surprisingly well. Phantom Quest Corp is a 4-episode OVA from Studio Madhouse that follows what may be the most jank corporation of occult exorcists to have ever graced the planet. Imagine the Jujutsu sorcerers from JJK, but like, instead of being an organized unit that's funded by the Japanese government, they're a shady LLC from Atlanta with questionable leadership and even more questionable business practices. Yeah, that's Phantom Quest Corp, but it's okay though, because the main character slash president of the Phantom Quest Corp is a strong, hot, alcoholic woman that be beating down on niggas and demons and shit. See how that was the part that caught your attention? I know. Seek help, gang. Anywho, if any part of what I've described in these past few minutes has piqued your intrigue, I sure hope it did, then why don't you come join me as we explore this spooky 4-episode OVA from 1994 that's perfect for the Halloween season, Phantom Quest Corp. The otherwise bustling city streets of Tokyo are unusually quiet on this particular night. For a while, nothing of note can be heard coming from the city, but then suddenly, as if out of nowhere, the frantic footsteps of a young woman attempting to outrun her pursuer echo through the midnight air. We get a look at this woman who's running, and much to her misfortune, the man that is chasing her is literally just a straight up vampire, like shadows, bats, fangs, the whole nine. He is probably the most stereotypically vampiric vampire that I have ever seen in my life. I'm talking about some The Count from Sesame Street levels of vampirism going on here, but after cornering the woman who was running from him, the vampire activates this hypnosis ability that he uses to lure the woman in closer to him. The brainwashed woman is about half a second short of getting bit by the vampire, but apparently the vampire's breath is mad hot or something, because a mere waft of his shit snaps the young woman back into consciousness, once again giving her the chance to try to make her escape from this vampire. She does not make her escape from this vampire. We cut to the next morning and we're at this cozy looking house that's oddly located smack dab in the middle of a bunch of Shinjuku skyscrapers. Sleeping within this house, or oversleeping within this house rather, is Ayaka Kisaragi, the strongest exorcist around, the president of Phantom Quest Corp, and above all, a very eepy lady. After randomly nip-slipping us, thanks Madhouse, Ayaka falls back asleep, dozing off after silencing her 3 alarm clocks, but come to find out, someone had set up like 25 other alarm clocks around her bed just to make sure she got up in the morning. This someone in question is a little kid named Mamoru, who honestly looks like he can't be a day over 12 years old. They never really explain why exactly this 12-year-old boy is doing unsupervised child labor for this grown-ass 35-year-old woman, but the boy Mamoru handles everything from bookkeeping to housework to recruitment to research. In fact, it's not even a stretch to say that this little boy carries the entire of Phantom Quest on his back. And so yeah, before we go any further into this story, just get used to this little ass kid bossing around this grown ass woman and not the other way around. Anywho, a bit of time passes before Ayaka and Mamoru meet with their scheduled client for today, some rich nigga from Transylvania. The rich dude explains that some esoteric Japanese investor has recently purchased purchase Count Dracula's casket as like some sort of novelty collector's item, and that in doing so, he basically freed Dracula's soul to go terrorize young women on the streets of Japan. Ayaka's like, oh word, and the Transylvanian dude is like, yeah man, I've been researching the situation lately. I'm pretty sure we got us a vampire problem on our hands, and I will pay you any amount of money that it takes for you to handle this vampire. Ayaka hears this and she gets excited. She's like, you said any amount? But she gets cut off by the front door opening and this middle-aged detective stumbling through the door. This is Detective 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠. You can kind of think of him as like Ayaka's sidekick in a way. He works for the division of the police force that investigates the same sort of occult stuff that Ayaka deals with, and so these two rub shoulders and collaborate a lot due to the nature of their work basically being the same. I don't think he's an exorcist himself though, and so him and Ayaka kind of have this mutually beneficial working relationship where he provides her with resources from the police force and she provides him with her exorcism superpowers for a fee, of course. Anyway, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 happens to be coming to visit Ayaka for help with the same case that the Transylvanian dude was just yapping about. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 hearing about the vampire case via his police investigation, and so seeing the opportunity to get two bags with one stone, Ayaka decides to take on the case, and she goes with 𝙏𝙖𝙡 to take a look at one of the victims' corpses. So now that we've had a brief introduction to the quote-unquote jujutsu sorcerers of the past, so to speak, I thought we could take a quick moment to talk about the jujutsu sorcerers of the present, the jujutsu sorcerers that we all know and love so dearly. Today's video is sponsored by Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade, JJK's first officially licensed mobile game that is set to release on November 7th and is available now for pre-registration on both the App Store and the Google Play Store. Now, if you're watching this video right now, chances are you're a JJK fan. Cool. If that's the case and you are a JJK fan, the game that I'm about to put you onto right now is 100% a game that you're going to want to check out for yourself. Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade gives you the power to relive some of your favorite JJK moments, but this time around, you're the one that's in control. It's not Gojo that's in control. It's not Yuta that's in control. It's not... I mean, is Yuji ever really even in control to begin with? Not really. In JJK Phantom Parade, you get to play as your favorite sorcerers as you traverse this beautiful, freshly animated retelling of the Jujutsu Kaisen story. On top of just being faithful to the anime though, the gameplay also features all sorts of crazy mechanics that actually expand upon what we see in the anime. Take for example the collaborative ultimate moves that allow you to combo your favorite characters' curse techniques with one another. If you take the time to pre-register for Phantom Parade now, you have the opportunity to participate in the early gacha and Black Flash game events that give you as the player the chance to win thousands of cubes before the game ever even begins. Cubes are like the in-game currency that you use to make purchases within the game. Gacha rolls, AP, that type of stuff. As of right now, Phantom Parade has reached over 5 million pre-registrations, meaning that everyone who's pre-registered for the game will already spawn in with an extra 2,000 cubes to their name, so you know, obviously you can see the advantage to that. If the game can get up to 10 million pre-registrations by release on November 7th, then the reward gets even better, with everyone registered being eligible for an SSR gacha ticket just for registering to play the game. If you don't want to miss out on that free gacha ticket and you want to be able to explore JJK's story in the most immersive manner to date on November 7th, then go ahead and follow the link in my description where you can pre-register for the game now. And again, every pre-registration counts towards that goal of 10 million pre-registrations for an SSR gacha ticket. Thank you again to JJK Phantom Parade for sponsoring this video. And now back to the video. Now back to Ayaka and them. And yeah. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 happens to be coming to visit Ayaka for help with the same case that the Transylvanian dude was just yapping about. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 hearing about the vampire case via his police investigation, and so seeing the opportunity to get two bags with one stone, Ayaka decides to take on the case, and she goes with 𝙏𝙖𝙡 to take a look at one of the victims' corpses. After looking at the corpse and confirming that her death was in fact the result of a supernatural murder, Ayaka starts flirting with 𝙏𝙖𝙡 since it's looking like they're going to be teaming up for a paranormal investigation again. Apparently these two have some sort of love chemistry going on, kinda. I mean, we get like flashes of it here and there, but it definitely isn't a major part of the OVA itself. But after going tsundere mode on 𝙏𝙖𝙡, Ayaka heads out to resume her investigation on the vampire at large. She's on the phone with Mamoru, and Mamoru suggests that she visit an exorcist named Madame 𝙏𝙖, who specializes in like clairvoyance, locating good and evil spirits, so on and so forth. Now 𝙏𝙖 and Ayaka, they have beef. kinda. I mean, I suppose it's more accurate to say that Ayaka owes 𝙏𝙖 a shit ton of money for her services that has yet to be paid, and so 𝙏𝙖 is hesitant about providing Ayaka with any further assistance, lest she watch the debt that she's owed grow even larger. But by handing 𝙏𝙖 an envelope full of money, Ayaka is able to get Madame 𝙏𝙖 to overlook her debts for now and help her out with just this one case. With the help of 𝙏𝙖's clairvoyance, Ayaka is able to predict the victim of the vampire's next attack. A young lady who lives near the Tokyo Tower is apparently said to be the next victim, and so that night, as the vampire goes to try to attack this young lady, Ayaka is already there on go mode, and she jumps the vampire with this attack of exploding light. As the vampire keeps his grip tight on the young woman, Ayaka emerges from the alley in front of them, pulling out a tube of lipstick that she proceeds to transform into what's essentially a lightsaber. This is the Red Dragon Spirit Capture Star Sword, Ayaka's main exorcism weapon, and I'm not gonna lie, lipstick lightsaber gotta be some of the toughest shit I ever seen in my life, bro. Ayaka attempts to jump the vampire again, slashing downward where he stands, but before he can get hit, the vampire disappears into the night, dropping his victim where she stood. Seeing that the victim is falling, 𝙏𝙖 leaps in and breaks her fall with his own body, and as the detective is handling the young woman, Ayaka continues to chase the vampire who she saw make a break for it around the corner. Unfortunately for Miss Kisaragi though, old Dracula over here apparently got the jets on him, and so he's able to outrun the woman, disappearing into the shadows before she can manage to snag him. As Ayaka is busy looking around for any leads on where the vampire may have gone off to, she looks up at the building above where she's standing and senses this strange energy coming from the top floor of the building. Now normally, Ayaka would have continued her chase into this building to track down the vampire, but because her and Detective 𝙏𝙖 currently have a survivor on their hands, the two of them are far more focused on making sure that the young woman gets back to safety. At least at the present moment. We cut to the next morning, and Ayaka has made herself at home in this young woman's apartment. When the young woman wakes up, she's confused as to what's going on and why this strange lady is in her home. But after Ayaka introduces herself and explains the situation, the young woman seems mostly fine with letting Ayaka look over her in the meantime. As the young woman is getting some more rest, her name is Makiko, by the way, but as Makiko is getting some more rest, Ayaka steps outside to get a breath of fresh air and to speak to the detective. Unfortunately for Ayaka though, by stepping outside at a time like this, the woman has unintentionally breached anime rule number 336-2. Never leave your person of interest unattended in a room by themselves, especially if a villain is out on the prowl. When Ayaka gets back to the room where Makiko is resting, she returns to find a vampire in the room with the girl as well. Yet for some reason, despite being a vampire, he's doing a lot of very non-vampiric things. I mean, for starters, he's standing out in the sun, which, you know, vampires can't do. But then on top of just standing in the sun, the vampire in question is actually giving Makiko a crucifix, which is, you know, one of the main talismans traditionally used to ward off vampires. So yeah, all around there's clearly a lot of funny business going on with this so-called vampire in the room. The moment the vampire sees Ayaka, he makes a run for it, jumping off the balcony and fleeing on foot through the city below them. And Kisaragi, not wanting to let the vampire get away again, isn't far behind. She trails the vampire until she reaches his final destination, the same mysterious building that Ayaka had seen the night prior. This mysterious building is apparently a tea house called 𝙏𝙖 Transylvania. To be exact, I wonder what sort of mysterious things could be going on in a Japanese tea house named 𝙏𝙖 Transylvania. Upon entering this tea house, Ayaka is greeted by the surprisingly serene scene of a bunch of young women just lounging around and enjoying tea. You see, Ayaka entered this tea house expecting a vampire squabble, and so she came through that front door on her anime hero shit, on her show yourself villain type shit. But since that just wasn't the vibes that the tea house was on right now, all of the young women who are sitting around the tea house just start laughing in Ayaka's face, because you gotta remember, grown 35-year-old woman tweaking out in the front of the tea house. Yeah, Ayaka looks a little crazy right now. Why the fuck did your car sound like that? That shit is about to... As they're teasing Kisaragi, one of these young women makes the mistake of calling Ayaka old, and so in order to assert her dominance over these youngins, Ayaka slams her bare foot down onto the table in front of them, and she's like, "Old? Who's old? I bet you won't say it to my face." Obviously, the tea girls don't want none of that smoke, right? This crazy lady just dropped her bare dogs next to their teacups. Bro, I wouldn't want to box her either. And so the young women who Ayaka was pressing sort of just take their L and leave the establishment before before Auntie gets to tweaking out on them even more. After dealing with the smart-mouthed young whippersnappers, Ayaka proceeds to turn her attention to the front of the tea house, where the vampiric-looking man that she had tailed into the establishment has hidden himself behind the front counter. Ayaka goes up to the front counter and orders some tea while she's getting a better look at the suspected vampire. And as she does so, she's kind of like passive-aggressively suggesting that he might be the one responsible for the murder. She's like, damn, you know, it's been crazy out there lately. You heard about all those young women being murdered at midnight? The tea-serving gentleman tries to deny his involvement with any funny business for a while, but after a bit more pestering from Ayaka, the man accidentally tweaks out and ends up unintentionally revealing that he's a vampire right then and there. He starts like growling and his fangs start showing or whatever. As the vampire bares his fangs, Ayaka leaps backwards onto one of the tables in the restaurant. Apparently all the women that were in here having tea in the tea house have fled the scene, and so now it's just Ayaka and the vampire in here, alone for a 1v1 squabble. Ayaka starts talking her anime hero shit again. She's like, the time has come for you to stop. She fucking flips this nigga off, bro. Yo, this woman is crazy. But the vampire, on the other hand, the vampire doesn't seem to want to fight Ayaka. In fact, he seems more intent on explaining his side of the story than he does fighting. Unfortunately for him though, Kisaragi isn't there for none of that talking shit, and so she throws 2 more of her exploding earrings at the vampire before attempting to jump him with a broom. Why she decided to use a broom as a melee weapon as opposed to the fucking lightsaber in her pocket beats me, bro. Maybe she was drunk. The vampire is able to catch the broom between his palms before the wooden broomstick can bash his skull in. But after a few seconds of going muscle for muscle with Ayaka, the vamp passes out, falling backwards onto the ground. Ayaka, for some reason, decides to check to make sure that he's okay, despite the fact that she was entirely willing to splinter his skull a few seconds ago. And as she removes the man's sunglasses to make sure that he's alright, the vampire admits that he's been anemic lately and that he needs to lie down somewhere, hence why he didn't really want to fight Ayaka in the first place. When the vampire finally awakens from his anemia-induced slumber, night has once again settled over the city. Apparently Ayaka filled in this vampire shift at the tea shop for him while he rested, which is very nice of her, but come to find out, this vampire here is actually not the same vampire that Ayaka had caught trying to murder Makiko the night prior. This vampire here, he's like a good vampire. He's a chill vampire. He's basically trained himself so that he doesn't have to do the typical vampire treachery in order to survive. He can withstand crosses, he can Oh, someone's getting booked out there. He can withstand crosses, he can withstand garlic, he can withstand sunlight. He can even go for extended periods of time without drinking blood. He still needs blood, approximately a Coke bottle's worth of it per year, but he can go without it. Now, Ayaka, I don't know what type of shit Ayaka was on, bro, but for some reason, after the vampire explains that he needs a little bit of blood to survive, Ayaka starts getting all flirty. She's like, well, I mean, if you need the blood of a young woman, shit, I could hook you up. And the vampire is like, oh, nah, I said a young woman, and you drink way too much anyway. If I suck your blood, I'll probably die. You got a strong bottle of Henny coursing through your veins 24/7. I can smell it from here. The vampire then goes on to explain that he basically has an arrangement with Makiko from earlier where every so often they get together and, I mean, you get the idea. She gives him blood and he gives her, I don't know. She probably has like a vampire fetish or some shit now that I think about it. But basically, ever since Dracula has been in town causing problems, our good vampire has had to be extra vigilant in protecting Makiko since apparently her blood is just super enticing to vampires for whatever reason, hence why he was in Makiko's room earlier, giving her back the crucifix that she had dropped the night prior. As the good vamp is going on, gushing over his blood bank of a girlfriend, midnight strikes once again, meaning that Dracula is going to be on the loose, and due to their vested interest in protecting Makiko, Kisaragi and the good vamp decide to team up in order to take out Dracula once and for all. We cut back to Makiko's crib, and sure enough, Dracula has pulled up once again with the intention of getting himself a bite of that Makiko combo meal that he had gotten robbed from him the night prior. For some reason, Ayaka made the blunder of leaving the one nigga without superpowers to watch over the girl who was being chased by a literal vampire. And so, yeah, after teleporting Makiko out of her room, old Count Dracula makes quick work of the detective by hitting him with like this air pressure force attack that slams him into the wall. As Dracula is making his escape, Ayaka pulls up at the crib with the good vamp and she's like, damn nigga, you got one tap? Sorry ass nigga, where the hell is Dracula and Makiko? The detective points up at the Tokyo Tower where he saw Dracula take the girl off to, and sure enough, Dracula is up there on some dramatic shit about to take his long-awaited chomp out of the side of Makiko's neck. Fortunately for Makiko, with the help of the good vamp's flight abilities, Ayaka was able to get up to the top of the Tokyo Tower pretty quickly, and so just before he can take his bite, our exorcist pulls up on Dracula ready to run back their squabble that had been cut short last night. Now, one of the cool things about Phantom Quest Corp is that when the fight scenes do finally come along, these Madhouse animators know how to get loose with the choreography, bruh. Dracula flies up the Tokyo Tower in order to escape Kisaragi's lightsaber, but as she's climbing the tower in order to chase him, Kisaragi is able to coordinate with the good vampire and the detective in order to enact a plan that they can use to take down Dracula. Basically, the detective and the good vampire are gonna wrap the upper part of the Tokyo Tower in like this giant tarp, and while this particular part of the tower is isolated from the outside world, Kisaragi is going to do her best to stall the vampire while they wait for the sun to come up. Once the plan is officially a go, Kisaragi and Dracula start to get active in the observation deck of the tower. For a while, Ayaka is unable to hang, right? Sure, she has her lightsaber, which of course gives her the advantage at close range, but with his force blasts, this shit sounds like a Star Wars fight now that I'm saying it aloud, but with his force blast, Dracula is able to keep a good amount of distance between Ayaka and himself, making it practically impossible for the woman to fight up close and personal how she would want to. Now, I'm not even gonna lie to you right now, Ayaka most definitely cheesed her way out of this fight, bro. Like, if I'm Dracula right now, I'd be mad as hell. But basically, as Dracula is aiming another force blast at the woman, hoping to take her out for good, Kisaragi activates the lightsaber's secret technique, and she's able to stab Dracula across the room, since apparently her lipstick lightsaber came pre-installed with an extendo blade for good measure. As Dracula is dealing with being stabbed clean through the torso, Ayaka signals for her two homeboys to remove the tarp that's covering the windows of the observation deck. Apparently the sun has come up in however much time they spent fighting, and as the sun rays begin to flood into the room that they're fighting in, Dracula finds himself being exorcised in the most vampiric manner possible. He dissolves into a pile of ash as the sunlight withers his essence back into the realm of the dead where he belongs. Makiko has been saved, and more importantly, Ayaka's bank account has been saved for all of like 25 minutes until she's broke again. You see, apparently the collateral damage caused from, chopping the Tokyo Tower into anime cubes is a pretty hefty bill to cover, even after taking into consideration the giant lump sum of cash that the Transylvanian dude gave Ayaka. And so at the end of episode 1, moving into episode 2, the Phantom Quest Corporation is now in crippling debt that they can only hope to recover from by completing more exorcisms over the next 3 episodes. Now, about those next 3 episodes. This video is going to do a little bit of a skipperoo when it comes to episodes 2 and 3. You see, episodes 2 and 3 are great episodes. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed watching them, but you see, the thing about these 2 intermediary episodes, so to speak, is that there is an acute lack of Ayaka nip slips compared to— Nah, I'm just trolling. That's not— I mean, technically it's true, there are no nip slips in these 2 episodes, but that's not the reason that I'm skipping these episodes for the sake of this video. Long story short, I yap too much. This video has a deadline. Yeah, you get the vibes. Now, fortunately for all of us, there aren't many essential story elements that you miss by skipping out on these 2 episodes. Phantom Quest Corp as a series is very episodic and monster of the week in nature, and so apart from a few new characters in episode 2, there isn't much in these 2 episodes that we haven't already seen in the first episode. What you do need to know going into episode 4 is that along with Ayaka and Mamoru, Phantom Quest Corp has 2 other exorcist employees that they subcontract in a similar manner to Madame Sume. The first of these exorcists is Rokon, this buff-bodied big neck nigga who has the ability to banish evil spirits with magic circles. The second exorcist is their part-time intern, Nanami. Yeah, bro, I can't make this shit up. Her name is literally Nanami. Maybe she's like secretly Kento's mom or something, I don't know. But Nanami, who's only in middle school at the time of the series, has this super powerful pyrokinesis ability that allows her to generate flames out of nowhere. However, because she's still a kid, she doesn't yet know how to control this ability in its entirety, and so she's basically the Phantom Quest Corp's super destructive glass cannon. Now that we've got the characters down pat, the last thing that we need to go over before segueing into episode 4 is the debt that we were talking about at the end of episode 1. yeah, that debt got much worse. Between drinking, shopping, and collateral property destruction, Ayaka Kisaragi sure knows how to abuse a dollar, and so coming into episode 4, her company is so broke that, well, honestly, I think it's just best that I let the episode speak for itself at this point, because this shit was crazy, bro. This might be the brokest shit I ever seen in anime, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like most episodes in the series, we start off on an otherwise innocuous night in the city streets of Japan. Ayaka is chasing down this werewolf-looking creature, hoping to take it out before it can cause any serious harm to the residents of the city. Her plan is to chase the creature over to Rokan, who's positioned himself to snipe the creature with like this sort of exorcism spiritual ki blast. The werewolf actually manages to evade getting hit by Rokan's attack, much to the chagrin of Ayaka, who was counting on him to take the wolf out. And so as the wolf continues to run through the city streets, Ayaka finds herself tailing right behind it, deciding to take matters into her own hands. The gap between the wolf and Ayaka is slowly closing when Ayaka suddenly notices a shadowy figure standing in the direction that the wolf is headed. We get a closer look at this shadowy figure that's standing before the wolf, and he appears to be some sort of monk. As the wolf gets closer to the monk, attempting to attack him, the monk suddenly pulls out this beaded necklace and he begins muttering these indecipherable chants that cause the wolf to tweak out where he stands. As the wolf is tweaking out, a bunch of Monk Man's monk buddies come through and lend him their power in exorcising the wolf. And with their combined power, the monks manage to capture the wolf within like this glowing orb that exorcises the wolf within a few seconds. Ayaka and Rokan pull up on the scene as this gangbang exorcism is going down, and when the head monk dude notices Ayaka's presence, he takes off his mask and introduces himself. Apparently this monk's name is Mukio, and as you could probably tell from the group exorcism that he just spearheaded, Mukio is the leader of a group of monk exorcists called the 𝙏𝙖𝙡. After giving Ayaka his name and explaining his role as the leader of the 𝙏𝙖𝙡, Mukio starts disrespecting Ayaka to her face. He's like, yeah, well, now that we've met, because I've heard of you, but now that we've met in person, it's probably a good time for me to let you know that you should just retire from exorcism as a whole, because me and my boys run these Tokyo streets now, and yeah, we don't want Phantom Quest bum asses getting in our way. That's a crazy thing to say to your competition's face on the first link up, I'm not gonna lie to you, but before Ayaka could respond to Mukio little broing her, little sissing her, I don't know. But before Ayaka could respond, Mukio and his boys walk off into the night, presumably to go handle some more exorcisms until dawn comes around. We cut to the next day, and the girl Ayaka is still salty from last night. She got the boy Mamoru up on the PC doing research on the 𝙏𝙧, but even after scouring through the Wild West shitstorm known as the mid-90s internet, Mamoru is unable to dig up any useful information on the 𝙏𝙧. In fact, he's unable to dig up any information at all on this group of enigmatic exorcists. As Mamoru is scouring the web, Ayaka tries calling Madame Sume to see if the elder exorcist can give her any information on the 𝙏𝙧, but you see, Madame Sume isn't really fucking with Ayaka right now, given that the woman owes her mad bread, and so yeah, Ayaka gets sent right to a custom voicemail message demanding that she pay up. After hitting another wall in his research, Mamoru turns around to face Ayaka. He's like, look boss, I'm gonna keep it a truthful and honest buck with you right now. These debts need to get paid, and with the 𝙏𝙧 in town, we no longer have a monopoly on this exorcism shit, so you know, unless you want the Phantom Quest Corporation to go under at the end of the month, you really need to lock in moving forward. Of course, Ayaka doesn't like hearing the ugly truth of the situation, but you know, she knows it's the truth. And so that night, for the first time in the entire 4-episode OVA, we see Ayaka truly take her job as an exorcist seriously, or at least she attempts to take her job as an exorcist seriously. Turns out, the boy Mukio really wasn't playing about running these exorcism streets, bro, because no matter how many times Ayaka attempts to put in work with an exorcism, the raw manpower of the 𝙏𝙧 is impossible for the Phantom Quest trio to keep up with. And so Ayaka and company spend the next few days getting all of their kills third-partied by the 𝙏𝙧 before they can even engage the demons that they hope to exorcise. Just as Mamoru had predicted a few days prior, the presence of the 𝙏𝙧 in Tokyo starts doing irreparable damage to the wallets of the Phantom Quest Corporation. These niggas got binders and binders full of unpaid bills. They finally get a phone call thinking that it's a job offer, but come to find out, it's actually the phone service provider telling them to pay their phone bill before they cut their service off. When Ayaka and Mamoru decide to watch some TV to take the edge off, they end up seeing a 𝙏𝙧 TV commercial where the 𝙏𝙧 is advertising their exorcism services on national television. apparently the 𝙏𝙠 is making so much bread off of their exorcisms that they can afford a prime-time TV slot. Meanwhile, the Phantom Quest Corp is over here literally getting their TV cut off mid-commercial because they can't afford to pay the electricity bill that month. We cut to this family restaurant called Family Restaurant 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠, and within Family Restaurant 𝙏𝙖𝙡, we see Detective 𝙏𝙖𝙡 stopping in to get his morning coffee. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 sits down at one of the booths and he pulls out these case files along with a book on esoteric Buddhism. As luck would have it, the detective just so happens to be investigating the 𝙏𝙠 on behalf of the police force. As 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is settling into his seat, he looks across the dining area and he notices that 𝙏𝙗𝙡 from Phantom Quest Corp is out on the floor taking orders. At first he's like, yo, why the fuck is 𝙏𝙗𝙡 out here waiting tables? But the more he looks around the restaurant, the more he notices that damn near the entire Phantom Quest gang is out here working a day shift at Family Restaurant 𝙏𝙗𝙡. We got Mamoru in the back of the restaurant going to deliver this big ass milkshake. I'm not gonna lie, whoever ordered that big ass shit is one gluttonous nigga, bro. That is a smooth 2,500 calories in one milkshake right there. But before long, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is having his order taken by none other than, you guessed it, 𝙏𝙡 𝙏𝙖𝙡, who looks surprisingly good in the Family Restaurant 𝙏𝙗𝙡 fit. Like, hold on now, bruh. We cut to later that evening, around sunset, and we see 𝙏𝙖𝙡 and Detective 𝙏𝙖𝙡 hanging out at the park. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 explains the financial pickle that the Phantom Quest Corp has found themselves in over the past month, and 𝙏𝙖𝙡, being the nice dude that he is, decides to offer 𝙏𝙡 a job at the police force. For 𝙏𝙡, basically anything is better than her gig at Family Restaurant 𝙏𝙗𝙡, and so without much further discussion, the woman gladly accepts his offer. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is like, bet, all you gotta do now is go meet with my boss tomorrow, and yeah, she can hook you up with a job. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you utilize nepotism to find a job. This video is brought to you by LinkedIn.com. That night, as if he hadn't already learned his lesson from his last vampiric encounter with the arcane, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 decides to head to the 𝙏𝙠's not-so-secret base in order to get a better look at what exactly the 𝙏𝙠 is doing with these exorcisms. The detective has the sneaking suspicion that the monks might not be as benevolent as they make themselves out to be publicly, and his suspicion is quickly confirmed when he catches these bald-ass niggas locked in the basement on some freak shit, bro. They're in there, I don't know, worshiping evil spirits or something. Anywho, as you could probably predict, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 ends up getting captured by the 𝙏𝙠, cause like, yeah, no duh, them niggas are gonna lock you up if you try to sneak into their secret devil worshipping temple. But because he got captured by the 𝙏𝙠, when 𝙏𝙖𝙡 goes to the police station the next day to make good on her job offer, she's unable to do so because 𝙏𝙖𝙡 was never able to inform his boss about the details of their negotiation. Now at first 𝙏𝙡 is pissed as hell, right? She starts disrespecting the boss, which is really dumb, by the way, considering she's counting on this woman to give her a job, but she starts disrespecting the boss. And when she finally gets kicked out of the police station, 𝙏𝙡 proceeds to get back into the whip with Mamoru, where she starts bad-mouthing the detective. You see, in 𝙏𝙡's mind, the detective had folded on her, right? He promised her a job that he was unable to make good on, but Mamoru, on the other hand, he starts standing up for the detective. He's like, hold on now, maybe the detective is just busy, you know, maybe something happened. Like, there's a whole plethora of reasons that could explain why Detective 𝙏𝙖𝙡 wasn't able to talk to his boss about your job last night. At first, 𝙏𝙡 isn't trying to hear none of Mamoru's excuses on behalf of 𝙏𝙖𝙡. She thinks it's a bunch of bullshit. But when the two of them happen to notice the detective's punch buggy being towed off in the opposite direction of the police station, 𝙏𝙡 starts to become a bit more convinced that perhaps her old friend had run into some trouble during his investigation of the 𝙏𝙠. Now, this so-called trouble that 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is in, it's kind of hard to call it trouble comparatively. You see, the thing about this OVA is that it can't really decide how serious it wants to take itself, and this is most apparent in its villains that sort of oscillate back and forth between being Scooby-Doo villains and being like genuinely evil individuals by IRL standards. Like in the penultimate episode of the series, episode 3, the main villain is this businessman who uses his wealth and power to coerce women into unwanted sexual relations by essentially holding their careers hostage. And then we move on to episode 4, where the main villain is just bald ghetto with a tickle fetish. Anywho, as 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is suffering through his tickle torture, 𝙏𝙗, 𝙏𝙗𝙡, and 𝙏𝙗 pull up at the 𝙏𝙠's base, where they sneak in an attempt to rescue the detective. Now, the 𝙏𝙠's base is big as fuck, right? Like I said earlier, these niggas got mondo bread off of doing their exorcisms, and so these days, the 𝙏𝙠 basically operate out of this giant maze-like estate that's almost impossible to navigate if you don't know where you're going. Our trio ends up wasting the first few minutes minutes of their rescue mission trying to get to Kozue off of intuition alone. But after finding themselves running down identical looking hallways over and over again, the three of them are like, yo, fuck a stealth mission, and they proceed to jump a random monk and force him to cough up the location of the room that the detective is being held in. As our trio keeps moving, intruder alarms get set off across the estate, warning Mukio of the impending invaders. The leader sends out a squad of monks to go intercept the Phantom Quest Corps, but of course these monks are some buns when it comes to anything that's not meat riding Mukio, and so one long goofy ass chase scene later, Ayaka and company finally arrive at the room in which Detective Kozue is being held captive. Apparently, while the Phantom Quest trio was making their way across the estate, Mukio had transitioned from tickle torture into typical evil villain dangling your hostage over a death trap activities, and so unless Ayaka wants her homie to be dropped into this giant pit of tamed curses, I wasn't joking when I said this man was ghetto, but unless she wants Kozue to be dropped, Ayaka has no choice but to stand down for JK. She has super earrings that she can use to blind everyone in the room. As Rokon and Nanami go over to the pit to free Kozue, Bald Ghetto summons all of the curses that he's exercised over the past month, and he commands them to go handle his ops for him. Now normally, a play like this would be GG for said ops, right? Even the best exorcist couldn't hope to take on all of these cursed spirits at once, but Nanami, our resident OP glass cannon, starts having a pretty understandable panic attack, which causes her to create this giant typhoon of flames that blows up the entirety of the building's top floor. As the uppermost floor of the building is immolating, Rokon makes his escape back outside with Nanami and Kozue. A bunch of curses end up chasing them, since apparently Nanami's blast wasn't enough to wax the lot of them. But while all of this is going down on the ground, Ayaka has made her way up to the roof of the building, where she's standing off with Mukio and his henchmen. Now, anime heroes used to do this thing back in the day where they would give like this little prelude speech before they whooped your ass. Like they would essentially look you dead in your face and poetically break down for you exactly why they had to whoop your ass before proceeding to whoop your ass. I mean, they low-key still do the same thing if you really think about it. It's just not as campy anymore, I guess. All that to say though, Ayaka may have potentially dropped the funniest prelude speech I've ever heard in my life right here. It's not even worth me trying to describe it, since I don't think I can really do it justice, and so yeah, I'ma just let the clip play out in its entirety so y'all can see this shit for yourself.
Rampant parasitic business competition. Bald-headed creep who tortures my income. You know you're up to no good, and now you're the one who's gonna pay. Wanna know why? Phantom Quest is back in town. Prepare to meet your doom.
Mukio sends forth his cronies to go take out Ayaka. She's hopelessly outnumbered by this band of bald bandits, but thanks to the Madhouse animators wanting to show off, Ayaka makes quick work of the monks, weaving them like her name is Luke Skywalker and knocking them off the roof of the building into what is probably their deaths. God damn, Ayaka, chill. As Ayaka is busy handling the rascals on the roof, Nanami, Kozue, and Rokon are all still on the yard of the temple trying to ward off the spirit monsters. The trio is able to hold their own against the curses for a bit, but they only have so much combined power without Kisaragi's help, and so before long, they find themselves backed into a corner, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of apparitions that are trying to see them dead. After all the fodder monks plummet to their unfortunate but likely well-deserved deaths, Mukio decides to step into the ring himself, pulling out this golden extendable staff that he plans on using to cross blades with Kisaragi. Now Mukio, you gotta respect it, that bald ass nigga has some hands, enough hands at least that the animators decided to actually make his fighting look as cool as Ayaka's. The two exorcists have a pretty even exchange, basically going blow for blow until Ayaka manages to get a flip move in on Mukio that draws a little bit of blood from slashing him across the face. Mukio is no slouch himself though, and as Ayaka gets in her flip move, Mukio somehow manages to cut through the top fabric of her dress, which causes it to split open because, I mean, let's be real right now, she's still a woman in a shonen anime. You thought they was finna let Ayaka look cool during her final fight without being objectified? Be for real right now, bro. As Ayaka is trying to block her yitties from showing on the screen, Mukio manages to get in a blow that knocks her down the edge of the roof, and he damn near manages to follow that up with a finishing blow, but Ayaka dodges this attack just in time, and she puts some more space between the two of them. Ayaka is sweating like a dog now, and Mukio, I mean, he's just over there chilling for real. I think it's fair to say that he's winning the fight right now. Sensing his advantage over Kisaragi, Mukio lets out a battle cry as he goes to charge the woman one last time, but Kisaragi locks in as the man is running across the roof, and the two of them cross weapons one last time. In the decisive blow of their duel, Mukio gets Kisaragi across the chest. Again, horny ass nigga, what being a celibate monk for 25 years does to a nigga. But Kisaragi, she hits Mukio with the anime swordsman special, the delayed slash technique, and after a few seconds of thinking he won the fight, Mukio buckles over, causing his cursed spirits that were attacking the rest of the Phantom Quest Corp to dissolve. Thinking that the battle is over, Ayaka starts posing for the camera and shit, but Mukio decides to hit her with every hating ass anime villain's #1 favorite move, the ankle grab. He's like, if I gotta die, we gotta die. And he sends them both plummeting off the roof of the building. Now, I don't know if this was intentional or not on Mukio's part, or if it was just dumb luck, but Mukio actually lands on a tree, which leads me to believe that he didn't die right here. Pretty respectable tactic if it was on purpose, I'm not gonna lie. But as Ayaka continues to plummet towards the ground, Detective Kozu finally clutches up for the first time in the series, and he saves Ayaka, jumping forward and catching her bridesmaid style before she could turn into a pile of Ayaka sauce on the dirt. After being gently placed back on her feet, Ayaka looks up at the detective with these smitten, giant, sparkly anime girl eyes. Kozu looks back down at her with this love-struck expression of his own, and as the two slowly inch closer to one another, some horny ass nigga at Studio Madhouse decides to ruin the moment by having the bust of Ayaka's dress give out right then and there, nip-slipping both the audience and Kozu, who... Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that face right there is understandable. I can't even hate right now. Anyway, Ayaka gets embarrassed that everyone just saw her boobs, and you know, she goes tsundere mode on Kozu, socking the shit out of this nigga. I think she has super strength, because goddamn she sent that nigga flying. But yeah, that's kind of it. Phantom Quest Corp, ladies and gentlemen.